The original Nintendo Switch had one of the greatest launch years of any console ever, with one of the greatest launch games of all time, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And now the Nintendo Switch 2 looks to continue that tradition with an absolutely incredible lineup of games available on day one and throughout the rest of 2025. So in today's video, we're going to talk about my top 10 most anticipated games coming out for the Nintendo Switch 2 in 2025 and beyond. So for this list, I primarily wanted to focus on the new games that are coming out onto the Nintendo Switch 2. But there are a few key big third-party games that I am excited to see take advantage of the platform that also made their way onto this list. So since I mainly wanted to focus on the new games, most of the Nintendo Switch 2 edition games won't be on this list, but I did want to talk about a couple of them or a few of them in my honorable mentions. So let's start things off with my honorable mentions, and that's going to start things off with the two big Zelda games from the Switch era, and that is Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Seeing these games run buttery smooth on the Switch 2, they both just look so good. And definitely, I don't know if I'm going to play all the way through Breath of the Wild again, but it definitely would be cool just to kind of re-experience that game at the highest level that it can be experienced at. And with Tears of the Kingdom, I had a few side quests that I haven't finished. There's some Gleeoks that I still got to take out. So it's going to be a fun time getting to jump back into that world and take on those challenges, take on those fights, take on that world again with the enhanced version on the Switch 2, and just to replay that ending sequence again, which in my opinion, Tears of the Kingdom is the best ending sequence of any Zelda game that I have ever played. So I definitely want to play through that part again, and just getting it to experience it at a higher quality is something I'm really excited to experience on the Switch 2. And then next up for the Nintendo Switch 2 editions, we have Kirby and the Forgotten Land and the Star-Crossed World. Kirby and the Forgotten Land was definitely one of my absolute favorite games on the original Switch. And it was one of my wife and I's favorite games that we played through together. And so getting to go back into that world is something that I am definitely looking forward to. And again, getting to play this game up to its full potential with the enhanced performance of the Switch 2 is one of the things that is cool about these Switch 2 editions. And then we have GameCube on the NSO. So excited for that. GameCube has been one of the most requested, one of the most anticipated, one of the most hoped for additions to NSO, and we're finally getting it, and it's going to be there day one on the Switch 2. So that is really exciting. The GameCube has one of Nintendo's best libraries of all time, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that lineup expands and grows throughout the years. So excited for Fire Emblem Path of Radiance whenever that drops. One of my favorite games of all time. But as far as what's going to be there day one, the big one that I am going to be putting the most time into will be Soul Calibur 2 with getting to use Link. Soul Calibur 2 is one of the greatest fighting games of all time. One of my favorite games of all time. The music in that game, the combat in that game, just is one of those games that I'm excited to be able to revisit. Wind Waker is cool to have that on there. I'm still holding out hope for the HD edition to find its way onto the Switch 2, but it's cool to have that there. F-Zero, that's cool. But the big one for me is Soul Calibur 2. And here's hoping to be able to get one of those GameCube controllers as well. And then I just wanted to shed some light, show some love to two more games on my honorable mentions before we get to the top 10. And that is Marvel and the Cosmic Invasion and the new Daemon X Machina. Marvel and the Cosmic Invasion is another one of those games that's been part of this renaissance of the beat 'em up genre coming back to life, which has been so awesome to see with games like Shredder's Revenge, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers game that came out last year, and now we have this Marvel Cosmic Invasion. So super excited for that. Daemon X Machina, I thought the original game on the Switch was cool, and this one looks so much better, and gotta give props and shout out Marvelous for putting the entire game on a 64 gigabyte cartridge. So gotta give them props for that. So those are my honorable mentions. So let's get to the top 10. So starting things off at number 10, we have Street Fighter 6. It is so good to see a mainline Street Fighter game back on a Nintendo platform again. It has been so long, especially on the home console side. Yes, we've been getting some Street Fighter games with all of the collections and all of that, but having one of the big mainline game, it's been a long time since it's been on a Nintendo platform, especially on their home console. Now, way back in the day, Street Fighter used to be synonymous with Nintendo, especially on the Super Nintendo. We had Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2, just some awesome games. But ever since the Super Nintendo era, on the N64, no brand new Street Fighter. On the GameCube, we got some of the Versus games, but again, no brand new Street Fighter. On the Wii, on the Wii U, we got side games here and there. We got the Capcom versus Tanaku, or however you say that game, on the Wii, which is a really great game. But again, no brand new Street Fighter. No Street Fighter 3, no Street Fighter 4, no Street Fighter 5. We got Street Fighter 4 at the launch of the 3DS, but again, on the home consoles, that's where the big new Street Fighter games were missing. So having that back on the Switch 2, the game looks great. From all accounts from the Nintendo Switch 2 experience events, hands-ons, the game is playing great. Nintendo learned their lessons from third-party games on the Wii U, where now this version is coming. We can get a version with all of the DLC and the upcoming DLC. So Switch 2 players aren't getting a gimped version of the game. They're even releasing Amiibo for it. So they're going all out for this Switch 2 version of Street Fighter 6. So I'm excited to get my hands on Street Fighter 6 and to have a big mainline Street Fighter game on a home console hybrid Nintendo platform again. Coming in at number 9 is one that really surprised me, because I normally wasn't into at least one aspect of this type of game, and that is Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. Now, when this game was first announced for the original Nintendo Switch, I thought it looked cool, but normally I'm not really into the farming sim type of games. But this game also has an action RPG element to it, and that part looked really cool. And so my thought process was, does the action RPG side, does the story, does all of that look cool enough, look good enough to where even if I wasn't as into the farming sim side of it, that I would still have a good time with the game. And overall, from everything that I've seen, the action RPG combat in the game looks really cool, looks smooth and fluid, and it looks like it's just going to be a lot of fun with some some cool boss battles, and it looks like it has a pretty interesting story. And I like the fact that it's taking advantage of the Switch 2, not just for better graphics, better performance, but it's taking advantage of the Joy-Con with the mouse mode. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they take advantage of that and how that maybe makes like the farming sim part of it just flows a lot smoother, and what other methods they use it for on the action RPG side of things. And again, we have to show some love to Marvelous for putting the full game on the cartridge. So you can just put the game in and immediately boots up and play it. You don't have to install anything, download anything. You can just put the game in and start playing. So gotta give them props for that. And the fact that it actually has both versions on the Switch 2 edition of the game. Like apparently you can put the cartridge in the Switch 2 and it'll boot up the Switch 2 version. If you put it on the Switch 1, it'll boot up that version. So just seeing them do that, put in that kind of extra effort is really cool. So that's why Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma comes in at number 9. Next up at number 8, we have one of the best games of the year, one of the early Game of the Year contenders, and that is Split Fiction from the team at Hazelight Studios. Now, one of the big things that Nintendo was missing out on last year was if you wanted to play some of the best games of last year, the Game of the Year contenders, there wasn't a whole lot of those available on the Nintendo Switch last year. This year, with the Switch 2 especially, that is going to be a completely different story. And Split Fiction is one of those big titles that is changing that. Split Fiction is a co-op game, and I love me a good co-op game, especially couch co-op. So I'm excited to have this game available day one of the Switch 2 to be able to play this with my wife sitting right there next to me, playing that with her. And these guys, Hazelight Studios, they are the masters of the co-op, of the couch co-op games. With It Takes Two that came out before Split Fiction. And they're taking the co-op to the next level with the Switch 2, taking advantage and using the game share feature that they have on the Switch 2, where you can share the game either locally or online. You can share the Switch 2 game to a Switch 1, and the game was streamed to the Switch 1, and you can play that together with somebody through game share. So I think it's really cool seeing these developers take advantage of different aspects of the Switch 2, and that's why Split Fiction comes in at number 8. Next up at number 7, we have the sequel to one of the greatest action games of all time, in my opinion, and definitely one of the best action games and just one of the best games on the Switch in Hades 2. Now, we don't really know exactly when Hades 2 is coming out. It's estimated to be coming out later this year, and I really hope that it comes out this year. The game looks like it's ready, looks like it should be good to go. I know that they had the early access for it last year, and from all accounts that was already a really good game. So everything, all signs are pointing towards Hades 2 most likely being ready sometime soon, hopefully this year in 2025. It's the first sequel that the team at Supergiant Games has ever made. The original Hades was just so good that they had to make a sequel to it. Normally, I'm not really the biggest roguelike fan, but Hades was one of the few games that I really loved in spite of the rogue elements that it had. It was the epitome of just one more game, just one more try, just one more try. Hades was not the easiest game. You were going to die a lot in the original Hades, and I imagine that would continue on with Hades 2. But you would keep having little glimpses of hope that you could continue to make it further in the next round, make it further the next time, make it further the next time, make it to this boss and then that boss. And then finally you make it to the last boss. And it's just such an exhilarating experience. And then when you finally beat them, it's just so rewarding. So I really love the original Hades. And so I'm super excited. I didn't play the early access. I just want to give me the full game when it's done and ready. So I am excited for Hades 2, hopefully coming out sometime soon this year. Next up at number 7, we have our first Nintendo Switch 2 edition game from Nintendo in Pokemon Legends ZA. Now, I said this before, and I'll say it again, and I'll continue to say it. In my opinion, Pokemon Legends Arceus is the best Pokemon game on the Nintendo Switch. I absolutely loved that game. So when a sequel was announced for it, that was already hyped. But when we got the confirmation that it was going to get a Nintendo Switch 2 version, a Nintendo Switch 2 edition, that just took the excitement to another level. Now, at this time, all we know for sure with the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of Pokemon Legends ZA is that it will feature improved performance with a higher frame rate and resolution. We don't know if it's going to take advantage of like the mouse mode or anything like that. That would be really cool to see it take advantage of the new Joy-Cons in some kind of way, but for certain, we know that it's gonna look way better and perform much better. So Switch 2 will be the best place to play Pokemon Legends ZA. And everything that we've seen from the game so far in terms of the new kind of action RPG style of it, the combat, it all just looks like it's going to be just a really good and fun combat system, and definitely a new and unique one for a Pokemon game. So I'm super excited to get my hands on Pokemon Legends ZA. All right, now we are about to enter into my top 5 most anticipated, the games I'm most excited for the Nintendo Switch 2. But before we get to number 5, let me know in the comments, what games are you most excited for the Nintendo Switch 2? What are your most anticipated games? Let me know in the comments below. And now, at number 5, we have Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Over like the last week or so, it's almost become a meme at this point, where some account on Twitter or whatever will just keep asking, is there anyone that's really excited for Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment? I haven't seen anyone talk about it. Well, I'm here to tell you that yes, there are people that are excited for this game, and I am one of them. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is going to be hype when that comes out. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is one of my favorite games on the Nintendo Switch. It had its issues. Yes, it had some performance issues. It didn't always run the best, especially if you tried to do co-op. That thing would go down to a crawl. And then a lot of people weren't happy that it wasn't exactly canon to the Breath of the Wild story. But regardless of all of that, I thought the game was awesome. It was one of my favorite games of 2020. It was a great action game. It was cool getting to use all of the different champions like Urbosa and Revali and Impa, and now getting to use the champions and Zelda in the Imprisonment War that we didn't really get to experience in Tears of the Kingdom. To me, that is going to be really, really cool. And this should be and probably is the last time, the last game that will take place in this Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom universe. And this time, the story is supposed to be canon, so hopefully that won't disappoint people again, and things should be running buttery smooth. Hopefully we can get it to that highest 60 frames per second without any drops or stutters or anything like that, and just have a great action game and end our time in the Tears of the Kingdom, the Breath of the Wild universe with a bang. Now, my number 4 might surprise some people with its placement on this list because it might seem pretty low, especially since it's one of Nintendo's big 3, big 4 games for the Nintendo Switch 2 this year. But my number 3 is a pretty big deal and a pretty big game as well, in my opinion. And I'll tell you why when we get to number 3. But first, we have to talk about my number 4, and that is Donkey Kong Bonanza. Now, this game looks like it is going to be a blast to play. It's the first time that we get Donkey Kong back in a 3D game, like fully 3D world, since Donkey Kong 64 back on the Nintendo 64. So it's been 4 home console generations since we've had a big 3D Donkey Kong game. We got it on the Nintendo 64, but we haven't had it on since the GameCube, the Wii, the Wii U, the Switch. It's been a long time. So Donkey Kong fans are feeling good, and they are winning right now. And this game, like I said, it looks fantastic. Donkey Kong is getting his Incredible Hulk on. Donkey Kong Smash. You can destroy pretty much everything. You can destroy the entire world if you want to, almost. And it keeps everything that you've destroyed in its memory, and it looks like it'll be a fun time. We don't know 100% who is developing it, if it's the Mario Odyssey team or if it's some combination of them and maybe NST. But whoever is making it, the game looks great and is going to make for a great 1-2 punch with Mario Kart World kicking things off. And then right in the next month, you got Donkey Kong Bonanza coming out in July. And what I really love about this game is that you can tell that Nintendo is using the extra power, the extra capability of the Switch 2 for the gameplay. So this is like legitimately a game that we could not have gotten on the OG Switch. If we would have got this game on the Switch, that game would have been chugging, probably freezing, breaking all over the place with all of this destruction going on. So they're using the power of the system to innovate in the gameplay area, and I love that. That is the point and the purpose of getting a brand new system, is to get gameplay that you could not have gotten previously, and that is what Donkey Kong Bonanza represents, and that's why it is number 4 on my list. Coming in at number 3, which might surprise some for being at such a high placement, especially with it being a game that isn't a brand new game. But coming in at number 3, we have Cyberpunk 2077, the Ultimate Edition. Now, I was not surprised at all to see Cyberpunk coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. In fact, I made a video talking about the top 10 ports that must come to the Nintendo Switch 2, and this game was on there. I'll link that video in the description and you can check that out. But so I wasn't surprised to see the game on the Nintendo Switch 2, but the more that I've seen from it, the more that I've heard from the hands-on reports from the Nintendo Switch 2 experience events, the more that I've heard from the developers themselves and just everything that I've seen about the game, the more excited that I would get to have this game on the Switch 2. And the fact that it is a launch game and the way that Nintendo's been pushing it, you can tell this game is really important, not just to CD Projekt Red, but to Nintendo as well. It's one of a handful of third-party games that are actually coming complete on a 64-bit cartridge, a 64 gig cartridge. So you can just put that into the system and immediately start playing. Again, you don't have to download anything, install anything. You can just put the game in and start playing right away, not taking up any space from the hard drive or anything like that. So one, I love that. They did the same thing with the Witcher 3 back on the Switch, where it was one of a few games that actually used a 32 gig cartridge where the entire game was complete on the cartridge, and you can just again put that in. So CD Projekt Red has a history when it comes to these Switch games where they just put a ton of effort into these ports. And you can just tell that they're just so proud of this game, so much so to the fact that they have exclaimed that this is on the Switch 2 the best way to experience Cyberpunk on the go. And in addition to that, being able to play it on the go, I love that they are taking advantage again of a lot of the different features of the Switch 2, primarily with the Joy-Con, that you will be able to use the mouse mode. And like now that mouse mode is a thing. Every first-person shooter, third-person shooter, every shooting game needs to allow us to use the Joy-Con in the mouse mode. And having that on top of the gyro controls and the HD Rumble 2, it's just, it's promising to look like a really good experience on the Switch 2. And it'll be cool to have a really big, immersive RPG game like a Cyberpunk available on the Switch 2 on day one. I thought that it would have been good to have that combination of Mario Kart and Metroid, which two games that we will see soon, but which one is number one and which one is number two, we'll see soon. But I thought that would have been a good 1-2 punch to have right there at launch, with Metroid Prime 4 being a launch game along with Mario Kart. But now I think with the way that Nintendo and even CD Projekt Red have been hyping up Cyberpunk and been positioning this game, I think that they did not want Metroid maybe to steal some thunder from Cyberpunk, so they're heavily featuring Cyberpunk 2077 as one of the games that really does showcase what the Switch 2 is capable of, showing what third parties can accomplish on the Switch 2, showing what type of games that they can make and that can be successful on the Switch 2. So Cyberpunk is starting off as a really big and really important and a really good game to have day one on the Switch 2, and that's why it's one of my top 3 most anticipated, most exciting games coming out on the Switch 2. So we have reached our final 2 games, and coming in at number 2 of my most anticipated, most excited games for the Switch 2, number 2, Mario Kart World. Now, I've always been a pretty big Mario Kart fan. Some of my most favorite gaming memories, especially of playing with family, with friends, has been with Mario Kart. Especially, we've had so many like overnighters back in the day on Mario Kart 64, playing so much of that game. And just, yeah, Mario Kart's always been a favorite. But Mario Kart World just might be the most excited that I've ever been for a Mario Kart game. That knockout mode looks like it is just going to be so exciting, so much fun. I can just already see all the heartbreak that's going to happen, the joy that's going to happen, the excitement that's going to happen from playing that mode, especially if you have friends over and you can see their reactions and just feel everything that's going on when playing that game. So I am excited for that mode. And then I think that they still are holding quite a bit back from what they've showed us, especially with the open world aspect and with the missions. We've only seen 2 mission types for the game. So what other type of missions are they hiding in there? I'm still holding out hope that there may be some kind of like boss challenges or something like that, because we've seen these big vehicles on the road that you're able to get into and take control of, like with taking control of that big old semi truck. Like, is there more to it than just getting in that and just knocking everybody off the road, or is that it? We don't know, but I'm excited to find out. They've got some cool new weapons. One that I'm really excited to use is the hammer, and just everything about this game, the new techniques with the charge jump, the wall jumping, the grinding on the rails, just everything about Mario Kart World looks like it is going to be a blast to play. And I think when it's all said and done with Mario Kart World, that it might prove to have been the perfect launch game and might just be one of the greatest launch games of all time. This game is the very definition of a system seller. As soon as they revealed that Mario Kart World bundle, that was the version that most people wanted to get off rip. And it definitely helped that with the bundle, you got the game for significantly cheaper as well. But I'm already planning. I want to have so many Mario Kart nights, having friends over, playing this game, playing it with my friends and family across the country online. I already know I'm going to be playing so much of this game and having a blast with it. We've been waiting over a decade for a brand new Mario Kart, and it seems like they have gone all out with this one, and it will prove to have been worth that wait. And I'm fully prepared to be playing this Mario Kart for the next decade. Well, Mario Kart World is my second most anticipated game on the Switch 2. So that means that, yes, coming in at number 1, we have Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Now, in some ways, I think that some aren't really realizing just how good the Metroid Prime series is. Metroid Prime Remastered is still one of the greatest games of all time, and it is one of the highest rated games of all time. I know that Metacritic is not the end all be all, but it is a good measuring tool when it comes to looking at things objectively. And on Metacritic, the original Metroid Prime is the 11th highest rated game of all time. The 11th of all time, with a 97 overall Metacritic score. And then the remaster, which is pretty much almost like a remake that came out not too long ago, it didn't drop that significantly with an overall Metacritic of a 94. And the rest of the series with Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3 are all rated at a 90 or above. So recently, when it's come to Game of the Year talks, I know it's still relatively pretty early in the year, all things considered, but I've been seeing people say, well, looks like Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has that Game of the Year wrapped up, with it coming in at an overall Metacritic of 92. Now, don't get me wrong, that game is absolutely incredible as well. I've played a couple hours of it so far, and I'm loving it and looking forward to putting more time into it. So yes, it is a great game, but I think people need to remember exactly what they're dealing with the Metroid Prime series. They need to put some respect on Samus's name. If history is anything to go by, Metroid Prime 4 should be rated at a 90 or above and should be a Game of the Year caliber of game coming out on the Switch 2. And everything that I've seen so far from Metroid Prime 4 Beyond has proven to me that this game is going to be absolutely incredible. The game looks amazing. It looks beautiful. It looks like it's going to continue the Metroid series legacy of having some really good and exhilarating boss fights, and the implementation of the mouse mode of being able to use the Joy-Con as a mouse is going to be a game changer for this game. And the way that they've implemented with it being such a seamless transition is just really, really cool. You don't have to go into the settings to change it from regular mode to mouse mode. You just, if you want to go into the mouse mode, you just turn that Joy-Con over and place it down like a mouse, and it immediately knows that, okay, now we're using the mouse controls. And if you're done with the mouse controls and want to go back to the regular control styles, you just pick it back up and it automatically transitions back into the normal control. So having it implemented like that is game changing. That's where the innovation is, and that is something that you can only get on the Switch 2 out of the box. Not having to buy some extra accessory, not having to plug in a different controller. Right out of the box, you have everything that you need for this mode for it to happen seamlessly. And that has me so excited just for even controlling this game. And again, this is another game that they've barely scratched the surface of what they've shown us of what's going to be in this game. So I'm really excited for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. And I'm going to say right now, maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't think I will be. When Metroid Prime 4 comes out, it will be a game that will rival the quality of Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey on the OG Switch. It will be that caliber of game for the Switch 2. And that's why it is my number one most anticipated, most exciting game on the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, going through that top 10 just made me realize how incredible of a launch year lineup that the Switch 2 already has. It's a launch year lineup that already rivals the legendary launch year of the original Nintendo Switch back in 2017. But what do you think? What games on the Nintendo Switch 2 are you the most excited for? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching. And for more Nintendo, Nintendo Switch 2, and gaming discussion, please hit that like and subscribe button. And until next time, I'll see you later. Have a good one. Peace.